extra, read all about it.
God damn it, never mind.
L.A. Meekly revisits a character they already kind of talked about.
We never do that.
Except for this story and the last story.
Yeah.
We've already discussed what role the founder of The Hollywood Reporter played in the Hollywood blacklist. If you want to go back and listen to that god-awful story. But now let's focus on the other gross things he did and the huge magazine he founded. William R. Billy Wilkerson was born 1891 in Nashville, Tennessee.
Willie Bilkerson? Almost.
Bilking Wilkerson? He was the son of a man who went by the name Big Dick. Who, on top of having a knack for not embarrassing nicknames, he also had a huge gambling problem.
I was so glad that's what you said after huge.
According to
gambling debt.
An irresistibly phallic mental addiction. According to legend, Big Dick won the bottling rights to Coca-Cola in 13 states in a poker game, then traded it for a movie theater, then sold the theater and lost the money he made from it in another poker game, all within 2 weeks. He was a made man 3 times over.
I was jokingly gonna say, what, in like 2 weeks?
Yeah, 2 weeks. That's what happens when you have a gambling
problem.
addiction. But little Billy wanted more. You know, little Dick? He moved to Philadelphia to study medicine, but when his dad died in 1916, Big Dick left him the one thing he had always wanted: insurmountable gambling debts.
Not his name?
Go by my embarrassing and unself-aware nickname.
Have someone chisel it on my tombstone.
If they remember me for one thing, it should be my nickname, Big Dick. Little Dick quit school and moved to New Jersey to be with his mom and settle the debts by getting a job in a silent movie theater that his friend owned in Fort Lee. And then he worked his way up and eventually became district manager in charge of distribution for Universal Pictures. And in 1927, he opened up his very own movie studio. It failed immediately, and then the Depression hit. He lost all his money because he was a partner in a movie trade paper, and he lost it all in the stock market. But as he realized, how could you put on a trade paper in New York and New Jersey so far away from the new movie mecca, Hollywood? So in 1930, he moved to Hollywoodland, and on September 3rd, the first edition of the Hollywood Reporter, THR, was released. Their headquarters,
Good story.
The end. And they're still going strong, and nothing bad ever happened. Big Dick came back to life, and he won Coca-Cola. Their headquarters were at 1606 North Highland Avenue. They were reporting on the comings and goings of the local studios and the people who worked for them. Originally, it came out 6 days a week. Top that variety. That's more than daily. But in late 31 to early 32, they went Tuesday to Saturday. Then in mid 32, back to Monday to Saturday until June 1940 when it did Monday through Friday. And they kept that up for a very long time. Their original slogan was "Today's film news today." Now. It was highly stylized like yours was. They used industry lingo, made up their own insider jargon. They called studios the plant, and directors wouldn't direct, they would megaphone.
No.
It's kind of fun.
That's fun.
They had the rambling reporter column written by Billy's second wife, Edith Gwynn. The managing editor was Frank Pope, but the paper was Billy's. It was in Billy's voice, which sounded like this.
I'm Little Billy, and I want to talk about Hollywood.
I didn't think too much of Gone with the Wind. The voice was set out by his trade views column that would be in every edition for 33 years. Every single paper he had this column in. And being in Billy's voice, that meant that this wasn't going to be like any other publication that covered the film industry, which usually just churned out studio-approved puff pieces, daily variety. Billy was out for celluloid blood. That's what he drinks.
What a vampire.
What
a 24 frames per second vampire.
Nosferatu 24 frames per second.
Wow. Don't hurt your arm making that stretch, friend.
Ow. So he'd have squibs, which were 1 or 2 sentence articles that talked about minor things like which star was going on vacation, but also what problems that productions were having. He'd be critical of movies and would often give advice to the studios on how to make better movies, which usually went along the lines of make better movies. The studios hated the Hollywood Reporter because they were making public things like salaries and controversies, which the studio heads tried so hard to keep secret to maintain the illusion of glamour. So the Reporter was banned from a lot of studios in the early days. Guys like Louis B. Mayer and Adolf Zucker would have meetings to discuss how to put the magazine out of business. Supposedly, the head of publicity at Fox would have stacks of the Hollywood Reporter burned in front of his window every morning so he could watch the smoke rise.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Dramatic, cool.
Just what you'd expect from Fox. Dramatic and cool. Just 2 months in, even though they were immediately popular, the magazine couldn't make payroll and they almost had to shut down, but a friend gave them some money to stay afloat. And then an agent named Myron Selznick started his own agency and wanted to get his name out there, so he took out 90 days worth of ads in the paper, which kept them going. And then that led to more advertisers buying in, and then the New York-based big companies got involved, and they were often reporting. They became required reading very quickly in Hollywood and faced no competition for 3 years until some dumb other magazine we'll never talk about again came around. A few years in, they moved headquarters to 6713 Sunset Boulevard, where they stayed until the early 90s when another magazine we're going to be talking about, LA Weekly, moved in, who stayed there until 2008. It really was a local publication since it dealt directly with Hollywood, and it didn't sell huge amounts outside of Southern California, but it was huge in town, and Billy used it to place himself in the position of being one of the most important and powerful people in show business, a position he quickly started abusing by threatening studios that if they didn't advertise in the Reporter, their future movies wouldn't be talked about in the Reporter. The Screenwriting Guild, they fought back against this by fining the members who took out ads in the Reporter. Then Billy fought back against that by not running writing credits alongside those of directors and actors, which is why movie writers still aren't as well known as actors and directors are because of this little dick.
Yeah.
Billy was a force to be reckoned with. He was always well dressed. He owned a mansion in Bel Air. He had 5 cars and even more wives. He had 6 wives. He drank Coca-Cola constantly, which led him to discover Lana Turner at a soda fountain across the street from Hollywood High School.
The sweater girl.
They were both buying Cokes. In 1934, he decided that the Hollywood Reporter would give out its own end-of-the-year movie awards in direct competition to what was going to be the 6th ever Oscars. But under Billy's rules, the voting was open to all people who worked in the industry, not just Academy members, and he announced the winners a day before the Oscars to undercut them. But the Oscar for least commitment went to him because he only did this once. He also spread his wealth into other businesses. In 1933, he opened the Vendome restaurant across the street from their headquarters on Sunset Boulevard. In 34, he opened Cafe Trocadero, and in 40, he opened Ciro's, which is now the Comedy Store. But a love of Coca-Cola wasn't the only genetic trait he shared with his dad, Big Dick. They also shared big, long gambling addictions.
Oh, no. You think that thing passes on when you watch something your parents abuse as a child? You grow up right into it?
Well, when his dad was dying, he threw up all of his gambling addictions on him like the Green Mile.
Yeah.
It was exactly like that. Trust me. On several occasions, Billy blew the payroll of the Reporter gambling and then would have to get it back in loans from Howard Hughes.
The one person that understands his plight.
Yeah. So you come to me on the day of my fingernail trimming.
On the day of me building this enormous plane that can't even lift off the ground, but I refuse to back down.
He would also give prepaid ad space to the head of Fox. Like, that's how he would make up for his debts. Billy decided the best way to deal with his gambling addiction was to tackle it head on by opening his own casino that he could gamble in, and that way if he lost the money, it would still be coming back to him. He saw it as recycling. In 1940, he opened a casino resort in Lake Arrowhead, which turned out to be illegal and was quickly closed. Then in 1944...
How far into building it before he realized it was illegal?
Completion.
Opening day, big scissors.
Police shutting him down.
He's handcuffed to big scissors, I don't know.
Then in 1944, he gambled away $750,000 in Las Vegas and decided it was time to open up his own there. So he started building what would become known as the Flamingo Hotel. But in 1946, he ran out of money again, so he went to the most logical loan giver he could think of, East Coast gangster Meyer Lansky, who gave him the money.
Oh my God.
But sent as his representative the just as up and up Bugsy Siegel.
Oh, Bugsy. Bugsy almost shot Goebbels?
Oh yeah, I remember you telling me about that.
Sorry.
I feel like you should tell that story. Where did we
I read it in, it's in Alley Noir. Bugsy was with his mistress, who was a countess, and they ended up in Italy, and it was during the 40s. Said that they were working on some sort of real estate thing. I don't remember.
Concentration something. I don't know.
I don't remember. Some sort of estate in Auschwitz. I don't know. So they get to wherever they were living, I believe in Italy, and the Nazis have taken it over, and Goebbels was there, and Goebbels was rude to Bugsy. He's like, I'm gonna whack this guy. Like, I don't like it wasn't anything to do with like Nazism. He was just a big dick to him.
He was a Billy Wilkerson Sr.
That's one of those stories from LA history.
It's like a weird mashup of it's like Abraham Lincoln versus zombies.
Imagine
Jewish gangsters versus high up Nazis.
Imagine the headline if an LA gangster shot a high-ranking Nazi officer.
That'd be great.
Oof.
It still could happen. I mean, this is all relevant again. All these players are back. So he was now paired up with Nazi shooting Bugsy Siegel, who Billy constantly got into disputes with regarding who was in charge charge of designing the casino.
Yeah.
Eventually, Billy gave up his control to Siegel in exchange for stock in Siegel's hotel company, to the point that Billy now owned almost half of Siegel's company. In 1947, Siegel intimidated Billy into cashing out of the Flamingo for $600,000 and then proceeded to threaten Billy's life, which sent Billy to Paris to hide out for several months. During this time, Siegel was mysteriously rubbed off or bumped off.
Mysteriously. No,
Well,
he was
dead.
he's
He
dead.
was murdered.
Was it mysterious?
Yeah, it
though?
was mysterious as a gangster's death to me in Las Vegas.
Shot in his
He was
living room.
godfathered too. Some suspect it was Billy who ordered the hit, but because of his involvement with the Flamingo, Billy is sometimes credited with creating the modern Las Vegas. So this weirdo, he killed a major gangster and started Las Vegas. If that wasn't enough to damage someone's reputation, in 1946, Billy did just about the worst thing he could possibly have done, which we talked about in our Blacklist episode. He wrote a big expose in his column in The Reporter exposing the communist conspiracy in Hollywood and named names, and basically started the Hollywood blacklist. He hated unions, he was bitter against the studio system, and he blamed them for the failure of his old studio. So this is the very mature way he chose to work through that. The Reporter got banned by all groups that were against HUAC because of this, and it lost a lot of respect in town, but it didn't really have an effect on their circulation numbers. In 1947, they had some 6,300 subscribers, and by 1967, they had over 10,000. You can hear more about that, the details of that in the other one, but Billy never acknowledged the damage that he caused.
Why would he?
He said, "What I think and write doesn't have much influence. I can't reform Hollywood. No one can, thank God." Luckily, he smoked 3 packs of cigarettes a day and died of emphysema on September 2nd, 1962, at age 72. His 6th wife, Beatrice Ruby Noble, aka Tishy, took over as the publisher when he died and apologized for nothing her husband had did to damage people's lives in the 40s and 50s, and his obituary even celebrated the things that he did.
Wow, Tishy's not great either. Maybe you should smoke a pack of cigarettes a day.
Give these a taste, Tishy. Tishy led the Reporter onward and upward for several decades. In 1986, they launched their monthly Hollywood Reporter magazine, and by 1988, they had weekly circulations of just under 22,000. In April that same year, Tishy sold the magazine to BPI Communications for $26.7 million. Still no formal apology from the Reporter. In 1997, one of their reporters wrote an article about the Reporter's role in the blacklist, and they refused to publish it.
Whoa. Daily Variety? What would have published that?
Daily Variety, they were too busy, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. They don't commit to anything like the Hollywood Reporter committed to shining light on commies.
And a hard light. A light so bright it looks like an electric chair, where are they going to send you?
A light so bright it ended your career. Going through the early 2000s, the Reporter and its dreaded no-good competitor were severely undercut by the growth of websites like The Wrap and Deadline and IndieWire that provided all the information that they were giving, only faster and for free. They also had lots of big layoffs in 2008 when the recession hit. So to deal with this, they brought in Janice Min from Us Weekly as the editor, who revamped everything. She made their website good, and in a huge break from tradition, she changed it from a printed daily trade paper to a glossy weekly magazine, which upset many people because of her Us Weekly background. They feared it would become a consumer magazine rather than a trade informer, but they saw that wasn't the case pretty quickly. The articles became more in-depth and thoughtful, and they were hard-hitting. In just a year after Min took over, online visits on their website rose 800% to 4.5 million. So it was a big success. In 2012, Billy's son, William Wilkerson III, Triple Dick, finally issued a formal apology on his dad's behalf for the role in the blacklist. They followed that up in 2013 by starting a style website called Pret-a-Reporter.
Fancy boy.
In 2015, the magazine was again losing $25 to $30 million a year and was sold to Todd Bowley, who is a co-owner of the A24 production company.
Also has a gambling debt.
I think the Witch. Yeah, the Witch was
the
he lost a bet. The VVITCH.
Yeah.
And he also he's a co-owner of the Dodgers. So the end of this story is yet to be written.
No.